This is Thing with Feathers That Perches in the Soul by Anthony Doerr. 1. The House. I'm driving my twin sons home from flag football practice. It's September, hasn't rained in 2 months, and seemingly half the state of Idaho is on fire. For a week the sky's been an upturned bowl the color of putty, the clouds indistinguishable from haze, enough smoke in the air that we taste it in our food, in our throats, in our sleep. But tonight, for some reason, as we pass St. Luke's Hospital, something in the sky gives way. A breathtaking orange light cascades across the trees, the road, the windshield. We turn onto Fort Street, the road frosted with smoldering, feverish light, and just before the stoplight on 5th, in a grassy lot, I notice, perhaps for the first time, a little house. It's a log cabin with a sway-backed roof and a low door, like a cottage for gnomes. A little brick chimney sticks out of its shingles. 3 enamel signs stand on the south side. A stone bench hunkers on the north. It's old. It's tiny. Seems almost to tremble in the strange volcanic light. I've passed this house, I'm guessing, 3,000 times. I've jogged past it, biked past it, driven past it. Every election for the last 12 years, I voted in a theater lobby 300 yards from it. Yet I've never really seen it before. 2. Jerry. A week later, I'm standing outside the little house with a city parks employee named Jerry. A plaque above the door reads, "This cabin was the first home in Boise to shelter women and children." The outer walls are striped with cracked chinking, and smudged with exhaust. The rattling power heads of sprinklers spatter its back with each pass. An empty green bottle of something called Uber Monster Energy Brew has rolled up against this north wall. Jerry has to try 3 keys before he manages to push open the front door. Inside, it's full of old leaves and hung with the pennants of cobwebs. Little fissures of light show through the paneling. No furniture. Smells like old paint. Through the sturdy steel mesh bolted over a window, I can watch cars barrel past on Fort. Sedans and Suburbans and pickups, maybe every third one piloted by a sunglasses-wearing mom, a kid or 2 or 3 belted into the back seat. In a minute, my own wife, ferrying my own kids to school, will come charging past. "How many people asked to come in here to look at this?" I asked Jerry. "In 4 years," he says. "You are the first." Boise before Boise. Take away the Capitol building, the Hoff building, the U.S. Bank building. Take away all 18 Starbucks, all 29 playgrounds, all 10,000 streetlights. Take away the parking garages, Guido's Pizza, the Greenbelt, the fire hydrants, the cheat grass, the bridges. It's 1863 in the newly christened Idaho Territory, and we're downtown. There are rocks, magpies. The canvases of a dozen infantry tents flutter beside a cobble-bottomed creek. Into this rides a man named John. John has a gnarly foot-long beard, a wagon full of tools, and a girl back in Colorado. Born in Ireland, he has sailed around the globe. He's been to London, to Calcutta, around Cape Horn. He's heard the whump of Russian artillery, saw men die, won a medal. For years he was a sailor. Now he's a prospector. He's something else, too. He's in love. John stops at the tents and asks the infantrymen who they are, where he is, what they call this place. Camp Boise, they say. Boise Barracks. Fort Boise. John unpacks his wagon. To his south, the Green River slides along. To his north, the shadows of clouds drag over foothills. All this time, he's thinking of Mary. Mary is 17 years old. Big-nosed, wavy-haired, as Irish as he is. Good with a needle. Good at seeing into people, too. Her eyes, curiously, are like the eyes of a grandmother. As if, though she's half his age, she knows more about the world than he does. She, too, has seen a measure of the planet. Born in Cork County, sent to the New World at age 9, enrolled at a convent school in New Orleans, married a man in Philadelphia at age 15, gave birth to a girl. That marriage caved in. God knows why. Mary found John in Louisville, or John found Mary, and they got married and rode 2,000 miles west into the unknown, into Colorado. And now he's here, another 1,000 miles farther on, in this place that is not yet a place, to look for gold. John is almost 40 years old. Try for a moment to imagine all the places he might have slept. Hammocks, shanties, wickiups made of willows, lurching holes of ships, the cold rut of the Oregon Trail, curled on his side next to a mountain stream with his mules hobbled, and elk bugling, and wolves singing, the great swarming army of the Milky Way draped over them all. John rolls away rocks, uproots sage. Cottonwoods are bunched along the river, plenty of them. They're lousy with caterpillars, but they're lightweight and they're close. He cuts his logs and drags them to a flat area beside the creek and uses the blade of a broad axe to wrestle their crooked shapes into straight lines. A simple rectangle in the sand, 3 feet high, then 4, then 5. Into the spaces between he jams clay and leaves and sticks. He leaves 2 low doors and 2 windows to cover with paper. Later maybe he can put in real window glass, if window glass ever makes it all the way out here, along 2,000 miles of ruts and raids and storm, if he's lucky, if this place is lucky. He starts on the roof. Mary is coming from Colorado in a train of 14 wagons. Already she could be pregnant. Already she could be close. He fashions wooden pins for door hinges. He installs a stove. He nails fabric to the inside of the walls. Just get here, Mary. Get here before winter. 4. Hope. 300 yards from the spot where John O'Farrell raised what would become the first family home in Boise, my wife and I used to pick up drugs from a fertility clinic. We wanted to start a family, but we weren't getting pregnant. Month after month, we went through the expected stuff, tests, doubt, despair. Then I got a chance to move from Boise to work at Princeton University for a year. Then we got pregnant. Then we found out it was twins. Hope, wrote Emily Dickinson, is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. All autumn in New Jersey, we worried the pregnancy wouldn't last, biology wouldn't work, the fetuses wouldn't hang on, but they did. When my wife went home early to Idaho for Christmas, I stood in our rented New Jersey apartment in the shadowless gray light of a snowstorm, let myself believe for the first time it was actually going to happen. In a couple of months, we would open the squeaky back door and carry in 2 babies. The apartment walls were blank. Its stairs were steep. It was not, I realized, ready. It was not a home. Who hasn't prepared a welcome? Set flowers on a nightstand for a returning hospital patient, festooned a living room for a returning soldier, stocked a refrigerator, washed a car, laid out towels. All of this is a kind of hope, a tune without words. Hope that the beloved will arrive safely, the beloved will feel beloved. I stood in the little apartment in 2003 thinking of my wife, the 2 unknown quantities siphoning nutrients out of her day and night. How she never complained. How she ate fruit roll-ups by the dozen because they were the only food that didn't make her feel sick. Then I drove alone to a shopping mall, not something I've done before or since, and bought foot-high fabric-covered letters, A, B, and C, and a nightlight shaped like a star, something called a Graco pack-and-play yard, and set it up and then stayed up till midnight trying to figure out how to fold and zip it back inside the bag it came in. When you prepare a welcome, you prepare yourself. You prepare for the moment the beloved arrives, the moment you say, I understand you've come a long way. I understand you're taking the larger risk with your life. You say, here, this might be humble. This might not be the place you know. This might not be everything you dreamed of, but it's something you can call home. 5. Questions. Mary O'Farrell leaves Colorado in the summer of 1863. Lincoln is president. The Emancipation Proclamation is 5 months old. Across the country in South Carolina, Union batteries are bombarding Fort Sumter. They won't let up for 2 years. On the long road north, does she remember what it was like to be a 9-year-old girl and leave her home in Ireland? Does she remember the birds she saw at sea and the light heaving on the immense fields of the Atlantic? Does she hear in her memory the Latin of Irish priests, the Gaelic of her parents, the terror when she showed up for her first day of school in New Orleans and heard those accents, saw faces that were utterly different from every face she had known before? Does she think of her first husband and their first night together? Does she ponder the circumstances under which she, a 16-year-old with a newborn daughter, left him? Does she think of that decision as a failure or as an exercise in courage? Was it the same courage that kept her from turning back when she saw the storm-racked brow of the Rockies for the first time? Is it courage that keeps her going now? Pike's Peak at her back, her daughter at her knees, very possibly a new second child growing in her uterus, the wagon pressing into newer, rawer country, the bench bouncing, wheels groaning. Courage that keeps her from weeping at the falling darkness, the creaking trees, the unfettered miles of sage. It takes Mary 4 months and 4 days to reach Fort Boise. Here there are no telegrams, no grocery stores, no pharmacies. There aren't even bricks. On legs weary from the road, she walks into the little house John has built for her, stands on the dirt floor. Sees the light trapped in its paper-covered windows. John stops beside her, or in front of her, or behind her. How many thousands of questions must have been coursing through that little space at that moment? Is it good enough? Does she like it? Did I make it all right? Where will I cook? Where will we sleep? Where will I give birth? Will I find gold, and will winter be awful, and how will I feed us? Have we finally come far enough to stop moving? 6. Home. Whatever magic John threads into the walls of their house, it works. Fort Boise survives the winter, though Farrell survived the winter. John embarks upon a remodel. He replaces the gable ends with board and batten siding. He cuts shingles for a proper roof. Around them, civilization mushrooms. By the time the O'Farrell's cabin is a year old, Boise has a population of 1,658. There are now 60 buildings, 9 general stores, 5 saloons, 3 doctors, and 2 breweries. John buys wallpaper to cover the interior planking. He builds a fireplace from bricks. Meanwhile, Mary does not need a fertility clinic. In the years after she arrives in Idaho, she gives birth to 6 more kids. She loses 3. She also adopts 7 children. Their home is 200 square feet, smaller than my bedroom. There are no SpongeBob reruns to put on when the kids get too loud. No pizzerias to call when she can't think of what to cook. There is no telephone, no freezer, no electricity, no internal plumbing, no pre-moistened baby wipes. But it's fallacy to imagine Mary O'Farrell's years in that tiny house as unrelenting hardship. Her life was almost certainly full of laughter. Without question, it was full of noise and energy and sunlight. One day she convinces 2 passing priests to start holding Catholic Mass in her house. They celebrate Sundays there for 4 consecutive years. By 1868, Boise boasts 400 buildings. Ads in the Tri-Weekly Statesman from that year offer coral earrings and 18-karat gold ladies' watches, English saucepans, hydraulic nozzles, 24-hour physicians' prescriptions. A stage line boasts it can bring a person to San Francisco in 4 days. This is no longer a place of single men. By the end of that year, Boise has 200 children in 4 different schools. Eventually, John shifts from the unpredictability of crawling into mining tunnels to the rituals of farming, a more sunlit profession. Soon enough, he starts construction on a colonial revival at 4th and Franklin, a real house made of bricks. But before it's done, before they move in, John rides to a store downtown and buys panes of glass and carries them home, fits them into strips of wood, and builds real French windows for his wife so she can sit inside their cabin and look out. It's the same golden sunshine of a summer evening that every person who has ever lived in this valley knows can fall through the glass and set parallelograms of light onto the floor. 7. Probably I'm wrong about a lot of this. Maybe John O'Farrell had some help raising the walls of his cabin. Maybe Mary hated it when she first saw it. Maybe they weren't devoted to each other the way I want to believe they were. Maybe I'm trying to fashion a love story out of cobwebs and ghosts. But listen, to live for a minimum of 7 years with a minimum of 7 kids in 200 square feet with no toilet paper or Netflix or Xanax requires a certain kind of imperturbability. To adopt 7 kids, to not give out when snow is sifting through cracks in the chinking, to not lose your mind when a baby is feverish and screeching and a toddler is tugging your skirt and the hairdryer wind of August is blowing 110-degree heat under your door and the mass production of electric refrigerators is still 55 years away. Something has to hold you together through all that. It has to be love, doesn't it? And however many of its infinite permutations. John and Mary are married for 37 years. They live to see Capitol Dome raised and streetcars glide up and down the streets. Out in the world, Coca-Cola and motion pictures and vacuum cleaners are invented. On 13 May 1900, the page 8 local brevity section of the Idaho Daily Statesman includes the following items. The rainfall during the 36 hours preceding 5 o'clock last evening was 1.72 inches. The May term of the Supreme Court will begin tomorrow. Mrs. John O'Farrell is lying at death's door. The physicians have given up all hope. The second stanza of Emily Dickinson's poem reads like this. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. Sore must be the storm indeed. John outlives Mary by only a few months. According to his obituary, Mr. O'Farrell was one of the pioneers of Idaho, having come to the section in the early 60s. He was well and favorably known throughout Idaho and the Northwest. And then there's this. Mr. O'Farrell's wife died last spring. He never recovered from the blow. 8. What lasts? Through the decades, the house John built for Mary has been softened by lawn sprinklers and hammered by sun. The cottonwood it was built from makes a weak and spongy lumber, non-resistant to decay, prone to warping, and to keep the house from collapsing. Boiseans have had to come together every few decades and retell its story. In the early 1910s, the Daughters of the American Revolution collected $173 to move and re-roof it. In the 1950s, a dance was held to raise funds. 700 people showed up. And at the turn of the last century, folks who live in the houses around the O'Farrell cabin raised $52,000 to help the architect, Charles Hummel, repair the logs, doors, windows, and roof. And so it stands, 150 years old, same age as the city it helped establish. As unassuming as Boise itself, invisible to most of us, the first family home in our city. On a given night, John might have laid in here, on a homemade cot, dreaming of his last years at sea, Anatolia, cannon fire, the churning Pacific. 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 kids might have been hip to hip under quilts, breathing in unison, their exhalations showing in the cold. Owls would have been hunting in the gulches, and dogs barking in town. Mary might have been sitting up, hands in her lap, drowsing, watching stars rotate past her new windows. Out the door was Boise, place of salmon, place of gold, place to buy supper and a saddle, have the doctor stitch you up before heading back out to try to wrench another quarter-ounce of metal from the hills. 15 decades have passed. It's late September now. Smoke from a dozen fires still hangs in the valley, hazing everything, so I drive to a windowless gray warehouse not too far from the O'Farrell cabin. Inside, stored in an amber-colored gloom, are rows of 15-foot-high shelves loaded with artifacts. There's Native American basketry in here, and antique typewriters and a covered wagon, and Nazi daggers and scary-looking foot-powered dental equipment probably 80 years old. There are prisoners' manacles and 19th century wedding gowns and optometry kits and opium scrapers brought to Idaho by Chinese miners who've been dead for more than a century. From the arcane depths of these shelves, the curatorial registrar for the Idaho State Historical Museum, named Sarah, retrieves 4 items and lays them out on white ethnofoam. A miner's pick, a long metal spike called a miner's candlestick, a tin lantern, and an ornate wooden candlestick painted white and gold. Each is inscribed with a little black number and looped with a paper tag. Each, Sarah tells me, belonged to the O'Farrells. Did Mary carry this lantern into town on some winter night? Did her adopted sons carry the candlestick during Mass, sheltering its flame with one hand, like the altar boys I knew in childhood? How many times did John swing this pick, hoping to feed his family, hoping to strike gold? All 4 objects sit mute in front of me, points of light dredged out of the shadows, incapable of testimony. What lasts? Is there anything you've made in your life that will still be here 150 years from now? Is there anything on your shelves that will be tagged and numbered and kept in a warehouse like this? What does not last, if they are not retold, are the stories. Stories need to be resurrected, revivified, reimagined. Otherwise, they get bundled with us into our graves, 100,000 of them going into the ground every hour. Or maybe they float a while, suspended in the places we used to be, waiting, hidden in plain sight, until the day when the sky breaks and the lights come on and the right person is passing by. Outside the warehouse, the air seems smokier than before. The sky glows an apocalyptic yellow. Beneath a locust tree at the edge of the parking lot, doves hop from foot to foot. My hands tremble on the steering wheel. I start the engine, but for a long minute I cannot drive. It's not that the stuff is still here. It's not that the house still stands. It's that someone keeps the stuff on shelves. It's that someone keeps the house standing.